So what's good, TMG fam? It's your boy Ellen. I'm back with another reaction. How y'all feel? Welcome back to the channel. Salute, man. Quick question. Are y'all familiar with the Colts neck mansion murders? Me neither. Don't even worry about it. Me neither, bro. But we got one of the best storytellers here today to break it down for us, all right? Only thing I know about it is that it took place in my home state of New Jersey. All right, so shout outs to that chapter. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button and prepare yourself for this.
Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this old video, we're going on an expedition to New Jersey, you know? Oh! And so on and so forth. This is the tale of a family business, well, more than one, in famous Asbury Park, and the story of two houses about 20 minutes apart, and what happened over the course of about 10 hours. This story, I know it's a stereotype, but it really is straight out of The Sopranos. It's still going on to this day. Yeah, it's one of those, but there's more than enough to dig into, you know, in this old one, so let's see what we can do. So we're gonna jump around a little bit over the course of about 9-10 hours back in 2018, but let's set the scene. First of all, the scene being a township called Colts Neck. Why is it called Colts Neck? Something to do with chopping off horses' heads? I don't know. Let your imagination run wild. Back to reality for now, though.
I'm not from there, y'all. I know nothing about that.
I don't know. Let your imagination run wild. Back to reality for now, though. Colts Neck, Monmouth County, central New Jersey. It's pretty sweet, and they really love horses there, so I guess I kind of answered my own question. Fun fact, Springsteen, he lives there, and he's a big old horse ranch, so there you go. It's very affluent, a lot of small businesses, no major chains, none of that shite. You got ranches, and it's still less than an hour to New York City, so it really has it all. Back in 2018, it had a house, right located at 15 Willowbrook Road. Don't anymore. When I say house, by the way, I mean big F-off mansion. Today, you can purchase the 10 acres it stood on for $1 million. Ooh. 3 years ago, it was owned by the Canaros. On the 20th of November 2018, at about 12:30 in the PM, a 911 call was made to the Monmouth County Emergency Services.
Must be fire.
Fire? Where?
Willowbrook Lane, Willowbrook Road.
What is on fire?
The house. And there is a smoke's coming out, and there's a person laying down.
Where are they laying down?
On the property.
Can you get over
in
to
front
them?
of the house.
All right, get over
Yes,
to
I'm coming over.
Okay.
Oh my God, there's blood here. It's a corpse.
It's what?
It's dead.
What's dead?
There's somebody is dead here.
Yo, 911, it can make you mad with some of the questions, and I get it. That be some of their protocol, but bro, I would just, what do you mean what's dead? It's dead. The corpse is dead. See?
Firefighters raced over, and on the lawn in front of the home, they found a body. Just behind, the mansion was completely engulfed in flames. The fire would take hours to be put out, and the house would be completely destroyed. Inside the house were 3 more bodies. Eventually identified as the deceased Keith Canaro, 50, his wife Jennifer, 45, and their 2 kids, Jesse, 11, and Sophia, 8 years old.
Dang.
So nothing here was natural, but I guess I didn't really need to say that. And things like this don't just happen. Yep, in quite cozy Colts Neck. Though, what was even more bizarre than the fact that this happened was what happened 7 hours earlier, 20 minutes away. At 27 Tilton Drive, Ocean Township. Located there was also a lovely house, not quite as affluent as Colts Neck, but very nice all the same. And at that house lived another Canaro, Keith's older brother Paul. At about 5 a.m., again on the 20th of November 2018, a 911 call was also made from there, saying their house was on fire. The Canaros had some bad luck that day. Hey, that for free.
What's on fire?
I have no idea. Our alarm just went off and my whole house is filled with smoke. Everyone's outside.
Is everyone out of the house?
Yes. Okay.
We'll get everybody over here. Okay.
I have a turtle inside too.
Don't go back in for it, unfortunately. We're going to get everybody over there, okay?
Paul's fire was a lot less scary, trading a bloody body on the lawn for turtle. So who were the Canaros and what happened?
Just like my city, man. I'd be homesick for like a little split second. You know what I mean? Then I go there and get my car stolen. Snap me right out of it.
The Canaros were born and raised in Brooklyn. Paul Canaro the oldest, Keith 1 year younger, and there was a third brother, Corey, 7 years younger than Paul. Paul and Keith were extremely close growing up in Brooklyn and later Staten Island. They would always look out for each other. They would both end up marrying women from Staten Island. Keith would be Paul's best man, and sure, eventually they would live only 20 minutes apart from each other, and be co-owners of a tech company, Square One, and a pest control company, EcoStar Pest Management, both operated out of the same building in Asbury Park. Keith was probably the more successful one and the more driven one out of the two. In high school, he worked as a janitor at a computer store, and from there he would be around computers his entire life. He started a tech consulting company in the 90s, which would later become Square One, even being written about in the Asbury Park Press when he went by Keith Martin. That was his middle name. Sure, Keith's first hire? His older brother Paul. The company they ran together. It was very, very successful. You know, eventually they decided to purchase a pest control business. You know, gotta diversify. Hey, you know, we use a mouse. Why not kill them? So Paul took over that. Keith stayed in tech. The brothers were doing grand. All three of them lived in Jersey, and they seemed to be a success story.
Okay.
Things, however, changed in 2012. Paul, he'd kind of always been overshadowed a little bit by his younger, you know, more ambitious, more successful brother. Keith had started multiple companies, had a real estate license, had just received a master's from Columbia University. Though, you know, Paul, he was doing fine just the same. And he was seriously injured in a car accident. He would end up in constant pain. He'd a shitload of surgeries, and he would have a limp and constant back pain the rest of his life. No bueno. It was bad, and things wouldn't ever be the same again. Paul would be very frustrated due to this. It seemed to cause contention at home. He would move out of the Ocean Township home he shared with his wife and 2 daughters for a time. But recently, and when I say recently, I mean 2018, he moved back in with them, but they didn't share beds. And Keith had also recently been talking about maybe ending their business partnership. Now, employees at both companies would say they were doing well. It's not like either one was, you know, going down to jacks. But Keith, it seemed he wanted to end.
Like, y'all see where this is kind of headed, I'm thinking? I hope not. I hope not. Because like we be talking about, y'all, it be your own family, bro. Your own family that you can't trust.
End things and move on. Do something else. And Keith was hoping to end up working at one of the bigger tech companies. And then, come November 2018, it seemed like someone wanted to end them both. When firefighters arrived on the 20th of November to Keith's house in Colts Neck, he was found on the lawn. He had been shot once in the lower back and 4 times in the head. Multiple shell casings.
When somebody shoots you 4 times in the head, bro, it's personal. It's personal. Like, either you mess with their wife, you know what I mean? You did something to one of their kids. When somebody just stand over you or stand facing you and let off 4 in your head, bro, nah, you can't get more personal than that to me. That's crazy, so.
Been shot once in the lower back and 4 times in the head. Multiple shell casings were found beside him with the stamp GFL 109X19. The firefighters then entered the home and found Jesse on the floor of the kitchen. He had been stabbed. Sophia, the youngest, was found on the landing. She too stabbed. What's really horrific actually about the 2 kids was that when the autopsies were done, a contributing cause of death for them both was smoke inhalation. So they were alive when Jennifer was found on the stairs leading to the basement. She'd been shot in the head and stabbed multiple times. The police then learned something interesting as the investigation began. That about 9 hours before they arrived, before the fire was reported, at about 3 a.m., someone had called 911.
No, you're not allowed to hunt anywhere in the middle of the night. Are you hearing gunshots?
I heard gunshots, yeah. I was in bed.
This person lived 3.5 miles from Keith's home, and they called because they had heard 5 gunshots. Keith had been shot 5 times. This was at approximately 3:33, of course, a.m., very wee hours. So the police arrived at that very cold early morning, but they couldn't find the source of the gunshots. And this person who reported the shots wasn't the only one. Another neighbor said they heard them too, 4 to 5 shots, specifically at 3:10 a.m. So whatever happened to Keith Canaro and his family, it looked like someone shot him to death directly right outside his house at about 3 a.m., then went inside, shot his wife Jennifer, and then stabbed her, and then went after an 11-year-old boy and an 8-year-old girl with a knife. Sick shit.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chris Gramiccioni. I'm the Monmouth County Prosecutor. I'm sad to report that we've had an incident here that remains under investigation.
Then the fire was started. It wouldn't be reported though for another 9 hours, by which time the whole house was consumed. So what's weird is that 2 hours after, we can assume, Keith and his family were murdered at 3 a.m. 2 hours after that, at 5 a.m., 20 minutes away, Paul's house was set on fire with him and his wife and his 2 kids inside. So this was also learned by investigators, quite a coincidence, and then they were contacted by the youngest Canaro brother, Corey Canaro. Well, actually, they were contacted by Corey's wife. They had heard about the fires. They called the police and told them that they were moving and taking their kids to Pennsylvania. Your 2 older brothers both had their houses set on fire. Might not be a good idea. They went to the grandparents in Pennsylvania. Corey would speak to the police, and he told them something interesting. The day before the fires, right, on the 19th of November at about 7 p.m., Keith forwarded an email to his younger brother, Corey. It seemed like he just wanted to keep his younger brother in the loop. And the email he forwarded to Corey was one he had sent to 2 of his business associates. In it, Keith wrote that he would not be paying another single penny to Paul Canaro's wife until funds that were missing from the businesses were accounted for. Keith also wrote that he wanted to sell the businesses. As I said, he was hoping to move on, and he was getting very frustrated with Paul and the amount of company money Paul was spending. Now, we will get to Paul Canaro's house fire and the, suspicious circumstances surrounding that. But first of all, let me tell you a little bit about the businesses the Canaros were running. Keith and Paul, they co-owned Square One. Keith was the majority, Paul the minority owner. But the pest control company, they owned that 50-50. But Paul had been in a car accident. He was kind of screwed. So what they did was Paul's salary was paid to his wife, to Paul's wife. Therefore, Paul could collect disability while he was still working, which is very illegal. And recently, Keith and Paul had been arguing more and more about money. 2 hours after gunshots were heard in Colts Neck, the emergency services arrived on Tilton Drive. There was smoke and a small fire in the rear of the house. The 4 members of Paul's family were there: himself, wife, and 2 grown daughters. They were sitting in a car, a Porsche Cayenne, parked outside. No injuries reported, and the house, it would be fine. On the driveway of Paul's house was a red gasoline can, right beside another Porsche which had marks on it, like, gasoline, spotting marks, stains. In a shed at the back of the house, well, there were 3 more gas cans with a space for a 4th, the one on the driveway. So, things are already looking, shite. But luckily, we might be able to solve this one without Scooby-Doo.
See, that's what happens when you do stuff out of anger. You know what I mean? You think you done thought it through, but you didn't, because you're so pissed that you just react. And now all the evidence is there leading right back to you, dummy.
Because Paul, he had surveillance cameras all around his house, so we can just see what really happened, right? Paul said, yep, review the footage, but ooh, I might have turned off the recorder earlier on, because, they're slowing down my Wi-Fi. Now, the affidavit said the cameras were hardwired, so they wouldn't use the internet. Paul must have forgot, and that's why he turned them off. The footage showed that at about 1:30 a.m. on the 20th of November, Paul walked into the garage to the DVR system, turned it off, so the system stopped recording. So the fire investigators quickly determined there was arson done by a dumbass. The police spoke to Paul's wife. She said she just woke up in the middle of the night to the smoke alarm. Her and Paul had been sleeping in different beds. Remember, they weren't on the best of terms lately. She presumed all the footage, was still recording. She had no idea Paul had turned anything off. So when the alarm went off, the family left the home. Paul took a Porsche out of the garage and they all got in, waiting for the fire trucks. So obvious what happened, but the investigators were looking around. Now, Paul's CCTV, he had turned it off.
So I'm guessing he lit his house on fire so nobody would look at him suspiciously for his brother's house being on fire and them being dead. I'm guessing that was his plan. How did it work?
Oh no. But a neighbor hadn't turned their CCTV off that night. In fact, it showed a white SUV, believed to be a Porsche, and Paul owned 2 Porsche SUVs, driving toward Green Grove Road at 2:07 a.m. from the direction of Paul's home. Now, that road is the main one. It can take you anywhere, including Colts Neck. That SUV then came back, driving towards Paul's house at 4:08 a.m. The house behind Paul's also had CCTV, and determined that car came and went from exactly Paul's house. So, to sum up the timeline, at 2 o'clock, a car leaves Paul's house. At 3 o'clock, there are gunshots heard in Colts Neck. At 4 o'clock, the car comes back to Paul's house. At 5 o'clock, Paul's house, a fire starts, and then at 12 o'clock, the fire is discovered in Colts Neck. Canines alerted them to an accelerant found, around the scene of the fire. They got a search warrant. They searched one of the Porsches. Inside, they found parts of a 9mm handgun. They found a suppressor, and they found night vision, thermal vision attachment for a firearm. On the
Night vision, suppression, all that for your brother, bro? That's crazy.
The 23rd, they searched the house. Inside, they found a safe, multiple guns in there. Ammo found was Fiocchi, if I'm pronouncing that right, 9mm, with the head stamp GFL 10-9X19. Sound familiar? Beside the location where the fire had been started was a plastic container. Whoever started the fire clearly hoped the fire would destroy that container. No dice. Inside that container was bloody clothing. And then when that was taken for testing, the blood was determined to be 8-year-old Sophia Canaro's.
We ain't even mentioned that, bro. Your niece, your nephew. Like, you gotta be a real sick individual, fam, to go over there, do what you did to your brother, his wife, and then turn and do that to your niece and your nephew. Like, fam, I have no feelings for whatever sentence they throw, and I hope it's a harsh one.
Tirelessly on these investigations over the past week. Give particular shout outs to many of them as we go through this press conference. But we called this press conference for the purpose of announcing that additional charges have been filed against Paul Canaro this morning. He's been served with those charges while he's detained at the Monmouth County Correctional Institute here in Freehold. We have charged defendant Canaro with 4 counts of murder, 1 count of aggravated arson, 1 count of possession of a firearm for an unlawful purpose, and 1 count of possession of a knife for an unlawful purpose. These charges that were filed this morning are in addition to the charge that was filed last week out of Ocean Township for the alleged aggravated arson of the defendant's own home. And by filing these charges, the state alleges that the defendant murdered his brother Keith Canaro and Keith's entire family. 2 children, Sophia and Jesse, and his wife Jennifer, during the early morning hours of Tuesday, November 20th. Specifically, we allege that the defendant repeatedly shot and killed his brother while he was outside of the side of his home, and then moved to murder the rest of the family inside the home. We allege he started the fire in the early morning hours of Tuesday, November 20th, after he allegedly murdered Keith Canaro and his family. Now, it's a fair point about the fire not being reported at 12:38. Based on what we know from cause of origin of that fire, it was started in the basement. It continued to smolder until, when there was entry made into the home, a great deal of oxygen coming into the home effectively fed that fire. So it wasn't reported until 12:38, and what we believe caused the fire to catch on from there is likely the feeding of oxygen as the house was entered into. Now, understandably, many have questioned and wondered about a motive to these alleged crimes.
Now, that's scary for firefighters, the way he just described that. You know, it's kind of like it smoldered down there, which could have created a backdraft situation right there. But you see it now, and they're putting water on it, but it looked like it was coming from all windows, it looked like. So when you saw them in the beginning, it was they was defensive, you know, surrounding it and drowning it before they could make entry, man, which lets you know that was probably no life viable on the inside. You know what I mean? Scary situation.
Based on our investigation to date, we believe that the defendant's motive was financial in nature, stemming from his and the victim's joint business ventures that they owned and operated out of Asbury Park. As a result, we have also launched a financial investigation into the business and financial dealings of the defendant. The fire at his home served 2 purposes. One was to destroy evidence that he retained and brought back from the Colts Neck crime scene, and the other was to create some type of a ruse or an appearance that his larger or overall family was somehow targeted. This, you know, we work for the state and for the government without passion or prejudice, but this one is the most brutal case that I've seen in my experience here.
Paul was arrested and charged with 4 counts of murder, 1 count of aggravated arson, and 2 other lesser weapons charges.
At this point, we acknowledge that my client has been served in regards to these particular complaints and ask that a not guilty plea be entered in regards to all of these complaints.
State your name for the record and spell your last name.
Paul Canaro, Caneiro.
Batshit.
We represent Paul Canaro. You understand that Mr. Canaro has been charged with 4 counts of murder, associated charges of arson and weapons possession. Mr. Canaro maintains his innocence of the charges. Wow. He has indicated that he would never engage in conduct which would cause harm to his brother or his brother's family. And he intends to challenge the evidence.
See how they worded that, right? Mr. Canaro maintains his innocence. Like, he thinks we didn't say that. He maintains his innocence.
It's been gathered by the prosecutor's office in this case And certainly, in his view, he believes that when the case is finally resolved, that he'll be vindicated.
I'd like to add that Paul Canaro loved his brother, loved his sister-in-law like a sister, loved those children. He'd never do anything to harm them. There's no reason on this earth for him to harm them.
You know, employees saw Paul the day before all this happened on the 19th of November, and they said he was acting fine. Nothing weird about him. He was normal. Buried in his iPad all day. I'm gonna blue ball you here now, though, because since then, nothing really else has come out about this case. He was supposed to be going on trial this year being 2021. It doesn't look like it, though. Paul was also charged with, getting disability while working, and that could be 10 years alone if convicted. Also, Keith's wife, Jennifer, her father filed a wrongful death suit against Paul. In it, he alleged that Paul, in addition to whatever naughty business stuff he may have been up to, he had also stolen $90,000 from Keith and Jennifer. Keith and his wife had discovered, about 6 months before their deaths, that Paul was taking money from college funds set up for their 2 children, Jesse and Sophia. Paul was taking it and putting it into funds for his own children. Total of 90 grand. So perhaps Paul turned off the DVR, drove from his house to his brother's house, killed them all, started a fire, came home, set his own house on fire, and did all that. And then, the idea of starting the fire in his own house was to make it look like he was a victim too. There was someone else out to get him. He pled not guilty, so I guess he's going for that. He did a really shit job, though, of setting his own house on fire if you wanted to make it look like someone else had done it. There was a gas can from his shed right in the driveway. And he did this all due to some financial shit with, his one-time closest friend, his brother, thinking that he could make it look like, I don't know, the mafia or someone was after him.
Maybe he wanted to get caught. But then that begs the question of, why plead not guilty?
Tony Soprano or something. Now it makes sense why Keith was the more successful one, because Paul is clearly a gobshite. Let's see what he says at trial.
Told y'all, man, to be your own family. Your own family. Those ones just closest to you. You ever heard, I've always been an advocate of, I can't go into business with family. You can't, man. And some people, I'm not going to say 100% you can't, because in some situations it works. But a lot of times, man, when you go into business with family, lines get blurred. You know what I mean? And it turns into something that causes friction. Yeah, the relationship may tarnish between you and your family, and that's never good. Never good. You hope it never gets to this type of situation, but 9 times out of 10, it goes bad for the most part. So I've always been an advocate of not going into business with family. Nothing against you, man. I'd rather have the relationship than us go sour because of, I'm a stickler with business. You know what I'm saying? And business is business, family is family, and they should be separate. So this is crazy, man. This dude here is a real piece of without trying to get demonetized, you know what he is. And I'm still like, for you to do that to your niece, your nephew, your brother, his wife, those kids, man, I just can't see how you sleep at night, bro. And I hope you, I ain't gonna say that either, but y'all know where I was headed with that. So, but y'all get at me in the comment section, man. Let me know what you thought of this video, and stick around and stay tuned, man. Till the next reaction, I'm gone. Peace.